Hello there, and welcome again. This is adescoy from my page Coaching for Purpose. It's the last chapter of my book, chapter 4, Icarus Projects. And it starts with, well, it's about a Greek fable. Anyways, here goes. Icarus Flight, Project Icarus. I sighed again over my melancholic outlook. I was feeling stressed out and went over my plans again. I had chosen this name because this was my flight plan from Lagos to London. I reflected back on the TV slots I had seen previously some months ago about Andrew, a character who was checking out of Nigeria in despair at the economic situation. I would have thought this was impossible then, but here I was now, a caricature of Andrew. So why did I name this project Icarus when its origin was from the Greek mythology of the man who flew too close near the sun and plunged to disaster after the wax melted his wings? Probably because I was taking a big bang approach and burning my bridges. I reviewed my project plans and all the technical details seemed alright, but there was still uncertainty since I had not traveled to the UK in the past 12 years. Actually, my uncle had booked fun and told me I would return back at the border since I didn't have a British passport. Whew. I stepped away from the table in the living room and walked onto the veranda, or that's a balcony as you call it here, and felt the harsh sun and humidity wash over me. I will miss the warmth and smell of Lagos. My gaze spread downward to the open street drainage which formed an algae cesspool and breathed in deeply. The sweet, familiar portrait smell of the tropics. My hands clenched the rails tightly, and I gazed upwards into the sun to imagine how Icarus had taken flight, and wished I was superhuman to take a leap from the balcony into the great unknown. My hands dripped sweat as I contemplated whether to jump like Icarus. Best to cut out the melodrama, I thought to myself, and wipe my hands against my single vest. My thoughts briefly shifted to my aunt, who always complained that I was often half-dressed, just wearing a singlet and shorts on her visits to her home. She had scoffed at me and taunted me, saying, "Seems that all the money spent to educate you in the USA went to miss." I turned back into the lounge to find that my meal had been laid out in the dining room. My mother gestured to me, "Adi, your food will get cold," while I waited for a familiar refrain, "I'm starving," which duly followed. I grinned to myself, warm thoughts of how I will miss her love and cuddling, and sat down to my meal as suddenly the world was a much better place. A quote: I have always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. It's a quote by Dwight D. Eisenhower. Car crash. The car was a total wreck, and I had been hospitalized. Looking back, the event actually redefined me, since any time my thoughts turned to despair, I relived my miraculous escape and re-established my sense of purpose. I had been driving home late one night on my way back from another evening at a country club with friends, and confessed to drink driving. Yes, I was on the last mile of the dual carriageway when I blanked out. When my eyes opened, I found my car speeding and about to crash into the rear end of the car in front. I had to make a split-second decision and chose to drive my car away and onto the hard divider. The car accelerated further as it hit the mound and crashed into a lamppost. The car bonnet, that's the hood, was crushed and the windscreen frame buckled, avoiding screen shatter. The impact was heavy, Since I later found out the lamppost was concrete reinforced, rendering my car to absorb the full impact. My jaw was cracked on the steering wheel, and I got a foot fracture from the impact. The miracle was that the car collided with the front empty passenger side, taking the full impact of the collision with the lamp. I was further restrained from ejection since I was wearing a seatbelt, a habit I had been derided for as acting yuppie. I retained consciousness and was able to drag myself out of the car, blood dripping out of my ears, noise ringing in my head. The car crash had caused a furore, and cars had stopped to witness the incident. Passers-by gathered around me, and with shock had to confirm how I came out alive. With a hint of malice, I was then pulled over to the roadside. The Good Samaritan appears. Amidst the bedlam of the crowd and confusion on how to get medical support, a car pulled over, and the driver owner took action. He pulled over the taxi and inserted me inside, commanding his own passenger to accompany me to the nearby local government hospital. Upon arrival, in a daze, I was informed that I would have to wait outside on the terrace for hours before I could be attended to. During this time, my brain was still foggy and I had been drifting in and out of consciousness. However, I got my wits about me and pleaded with my helper to get a taxi drive across town over the expressway to the private hospital where my family was registered. We had a police checkpoint on the beach where we were almost stopped, but I arrived at the hospital and I was ushered immediately into emergency treatment. I gestured to my helper and dug out a strict blood-stained business card which I pressed into his hand to please contact me so I could express my thanks to my benefactor. He left, and I never heard back from the Good Samaritan. And here is a quote from the Bible, Luke 10, chapter 25, verse 37, the parable of the Good Samaritan. The passage. The car crash was the incident to jolt my family into action. The accident happened 3 years after I had left my cushy job in the bank to serve my consulting firm. By this stage, I was completely stressed out because business had not taken off. I was just about breaking even, and my latest job, working on a contract with a second-tier consultative firm, working on a World Bank project, had kind of come to a close. Once I was discharged from the hospital, my parents sprung into actions. My views were finally taken into consideration, and I was given a brand new desktop computer and enrolled with an IT consultancy firm for 3 months to refresh and upgrade my hither zero computer knowledge from like 12 years ago. Ever since my original return from the US and the implosion of my then compact PC and lock-up in the psychiatric ward, I had been denied any further technical education. I certainly welcomed this and took advantage of the training of the managing consultant who had quickly qualified with a PhD in computer science. My next step was to do some groundwork on an IT career, and I found out about the Microsoft Engineer course qualifications. The UK newspapers advertised courses which showed good career and payment prospects. This was the genesis of Project Icarus, and I promoted this scheme to my parents. I believe they were probably worn down at this moment, and agreed only just no just to sponsor my one-way flight ticket to London. And so I had to contact family friends in England to agree if they would accommodate me. Finally, my luck was turning, and the planned arrangements bore fruition. I was determined to emigrate in search of the golden fleece and turn a new leaf. The culmination for me had been my failure to get an MBA degree after resigning from my bank position I'd applied for the first entrance, it was a cohort exam, to the Lagos Business School. This is like way back. And invited to the interview, which the board informed me I was one of the top three entrance candidates. It was the very first time they were using a GMAT score. True to my nature, I inquired about my true standing, first, second, or third, and I was generally rebuffed by the professor. Yeah, my ego. The added criteria, however, for admission to the program was a good recommendation and to be currently employed in a corporate position. This is where the penny dropped, alas and alack. I had already run through two other corporate jobs aside from the bank position and the big shots, including relatives who will not help in sponsoring me. I was bitterly disappointed, and now understood this was where the idea of checking out first germinated and where Project Icarus took ground. However, it wasn't easy. There was pushback. I was confronted, made an offer I should not refuse at the last moment before my flight. In fact, the day before my flight to England, another family member had offered me a guaranteed executive job in Lagos if I changed my travel plans. But the die was cast. I turned down the offer, and the next day had a small part session. I remember the day being my parents' wedding anniversary, and I departed my flight to the UK. And here comes a quote uh, by Yeats. It's actually a quote in the front of Things Fall Apart, the book by Chinua Achebe. And the quote goes, turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. A quote by William Butler Yeats. And I think it's a quote that kind of holds forth to Project Icarus. Thank you so much for listening and welcome to my website. Do stay in touch. I'm on Twitter at adescoy and just simply Google me otherwise. All the best now. Ade. Thanks.